Hey everyone, this is Kristen with Codex and another Codex review. And today I'm going to be reviewing the full comic series of Paper Girls, which many of you may know by now is currently on Amazon Prime. Full disclosure, this has been in my queue for a really long time. I only brought it open because I saw that there was going to be a TV adaptation. I figured that was fate telling me to go ahead and read this now. But before I get into the nitty gritty of the comic, let's take care of a few things. So, for those that don't know, Paper Girls was put out by Image Comics. It was published between October 2015 through July 2019. So, this is a long series. It was written by Brian K. Vaughan, art by Cliff Chang, colored by Matt Wilson, and lettered by Jared K. Fletcher. So, I knew nothing going into this. I made sure that I didn't watch any of the trailers for the show, didn't read any reviews or anything. I wanted to come in this completely clean, clear. That way I could really make it a good review for all of you. So let's talk a little bit about this. And I will make this as spoiler free as humanly possible. As we talk and as we review, there might be some inadvertent spoilers, so apologies in advance. I am going to try to make this as spoiler free as possible for all of you. Full disclosure again, I am hit and miss when it comes to sci-fi stories. I know that sounds a little weird as someone who reads comics and watches a whole heck of a lot of movies, but it's the truth, especially when it comes to things like aliens and time travel. It doesn't mean that I hate those movies or those stories. They're just not rewatchers or rereaders to me. Case in point, my husband loves the movie The Thing, the one with Kurt Russell. Amazing movie, cannot rewatch it a lot. I've seen it a few times. I'm pretty much fine. And that's kind of where I am with a lot of sci fi stories. So going into this, I already knew that it was going to be a little bit of a sci fi story. So that already is against it. But I'm not going to let that completely shade my review of this. So, for those that don't know, Paper Girls follows the story of four preteen girls in the 80s. So, a lot of the artistic style is very reminiscent of 80s comics. And it also suffers from something that I'm going to explain in just a moment. We follow these four girls who are paper girls, meaning that they go ahead and deliver papers in the middle of the morning. And something happens and they start this time travel adventure that takes you through the whole entire series and the whole entire comics. Before I get into the time travel thing, let me just talk about the four main characters here. Unfortunately, the characters do suffer from something that happens a lot when people try to write female characters. It's a trope and it's a trap. It is hard to describe and a little hard to explain unless you're actually reading it or seeing the movie or seeing the shows. But each character is unfortunately one dimensional. This happens a lot with female characters. So, with these four characters, we have the quintessential new girl, we have the quintessential smart girl, we have the quintessential sporty girl, and then we have the quintessential bad girl. If you need another example, take the movie Empire Records. I love that movie. Rewatch it all the time. My family rewatches it. We do enjoy it. But if you look at the female characters, they follow that same trope. We have the super smart one that everybody loves, the sexually explicit one that just wants to sleep with anybody. And then we have the troubled, tortured girl. This happens so much, not just in comics and books, but also in TV and movies. You even see it with things like Stranger Things. Nancy, we see it with Elle, we see it with Max, and we see it with Robin. It doesn't mean that there aren't other versions and other things in their personality. It just means that there's one thing about them that you'll remember. And what I just stated is what I remember about these characters. The second issue I have with this is it does fall into the time travel trap. Anyone who has read time travel stories, seen time travel shows, things like Doctor Who, Star Trek, if you've read, well, you're gonna learn a little bit of something about me. I really love paranormal romances. If you read paranormal romances that have time travel, they all fall into this trap. And I know I've said this before in other reviews, but it is still a chicken and an egg situation. Would everything that happened to them and happened to the world because of their time travel shenanigans have happened if they just, oh, I don't know, went their separate ways at the beginning? Who knows? It could have, it could not have. Nobody knows. And that is the trap of time travel stories. So, that being aside, I really did enjoy this series. I had only planned to read volume 1, and I got so caught up in figuring out what was going to happen and how all this time travel was going to go ahead and write itself eventually, and trying to make all the connections possible that I could, that I went ahead and in one night just read through the whole entire series, all 750 pages of it. Don't recommend you doing that. You should probably get some more sleep. I did not sleep that night. Um, the story is captivating. And you do sit there and go, how would this figure into the future? How would this change the past? And that's a good time travel story right there. You do want to go ahead and make those connections and also try to go ahead and predict what's going to happen. So, with me trying not too hard to be spoilerific here, let's talk a little bit about the ending. I know I'm jumping, but quintessentially, it is a time travel story. If I talk about it too much, I'm going to spoil some things that are going to be in the show and spoil things in the story for you. And I don't want to do that because you really do need to experience it yourself. The ending, this will not be spoilerific, I promise. The ending is perfection. The time travel trap that I talked about, it is so easy to use that and make the ending exactly what you want it to be and what you think the fans want it to be. And that is a real disservice because it may not be where the original story was going. A lot of time travel stories go ahead and make up these endings and then just go, well, hey, it's time travel, so we fixed it and move on with life. This does not suffer that ill effect. There are a lot of jumps and conclusions that probably go ahead and suffer from that time travel story, but not the ending. It ended exactly the way that it needed to. And I love that. It's not going to make every single reader or watcher happy. And they were okay with that. It ended the way that I felt it needed to end. Not that I'm the writer here, but it also ended in a way that was satisfying enough. There was so much going on with this story and so much changes in the characters. They are still one dimensional, unfortunately, but they do some growing throughout the story and throughout the series. And I look forward to seeing that on the TV show as well. But we now know what their future is going to be. Yeah, the whole entire story is spoilers in itself. They find out what their future is. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it does beg that question. If you knew what your future was going to be and you could do nothing to change it, would you accept it? Would you not want to remember it at all? Or would you just go ahead and still say, hey, screw fate, and I'm going to try to go ahead and change it? All of those questions happen here. Not all of them get their answers, but all of those questions do happen here. It's again the idea of like, oh man, if you could see how you would die in the future, or how old you'd be, or when it's going to happen, would you want to? It's very, very tempting. But would you want to, knowing you could not change a darn thing? Those are some of the existential questions that you're going to be asking yourself as you read this story. So, with that being said, I do give this whole entire series an 8.5 out of 10. The little bit of dings are from the things that I said at the beginning. The characters are one dimensional. It is your typical time travel story. You do sit there and go, oh, would this have even existed if they hadn't gone and had all these time travel adventures? Probably not. But even with those little dings, the story itself, it's going to capture you. You're going to want to read the whole entire thing. You're going to want to see what happens at the end, even if you know already what their future holds. So, with that being said, I do highly recommend that you read the story, whether you read it before you see the series or after you see the series or during it. I do think that it is a very solid story and definitely earns its place as one of the best comics that I have read this year. So, with that being said, 8.5 out of 10. Paper Girls is now a TV show on Amazon Prime that I now need to go watch so that we can discuss what happens in the comics versus what happens in the show. But if you haven't watched the show yet, do go ahead and give this a chance. Volume 1 is currently free if you have a Comixology account, and I guarantee you it will probably really snap your attention. And that's it. Again, Paper Girls is over 700 pages long and was published through October 2015 through July 2019. And the TV show just launched in July of 2022. And with that, in case you forgot, I'm Kristen with Codex. This has been a Codex review, and I hope to see you in the next issue.